Welcome to our Hatchery Live. I'm Jose Leal, and I'm here today with Will from Radical, or our Hatchery. And in lieu of my partner, Matt, who unfortunately is recovering from some surgery, and hopefully he'll be joining us soon. And today we have the pleasure of having someone that I've been looking up to for ideas and for the efforts that he's been making. I read his book probably, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago. And it's been inspirational, but I also have lots of questions. I also have lots of things that I wonder about. So we should have a really, really good conversation. A few weeks ago, we interviewed Ryan, who is working with Niels, and gave us the opportunity to reach out to Niels and have a conversation with the founder of Beta Codex Network, and trying to figure out how do we understand each other better and move this movement, this collective movement, not the Beta Codex movement or the radical movement, but the movement of a new way to see ourselves, a new way to do work, a new way to organize, and do that in a way that's changes things, makes things better, and helps the world. Neils Pflaeging, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Guillermo, for inviting me. It's an incredible pleasure to be on this show.
Awesome. So my first question is what brings you here, but in a personal way? Like, why, of the 7-8 billion people in the world, why are you coming up with a movement, changing things in the way that you want to change things? Why you?
Yes, I will try to make this short enough and crisp enough. Thank you for asking me about the personality thing, the identity thing, right? What took me here? Why did I have to take on this quest? I think it's the same quest that you are after, right? With our hatchery and with radical companies. But my personal backstory is I'm German, lived and studied in German, and then I moved to Spain for a year, later to Argentina and to Brazil. I lived in Brazil for 12 years. And when I started my real professional life in Brazil as a corporate controller, as a finance guy, then finance manager. And that was wonderful. And at the time, around the year 2000, I found, by the way, I did a lot of reporting, planning, things that you expect a corporate controller to do. Finance manager. Horrid stuff with hindsight, or done in a horrid way, let's say. We did a lot of planning and replanning and more planning. And around the year 2000 or so, I came across research papers from the UK, from England, from a movement called Beyond Budgeting. So that's where my sliding into this story begins. This is where I took paths to come here today, to this show. And these Beyond Budgeting people, they were crazy. They were saying budgeting unnecessary. It's an unnecessary evil. It should be abolished and eliminated everywhere. And I thought, this is nonsense. I still have the paper at home. Nonsense at the side. But of course, it's not nonsense. It's very reasonable to say organizational planning, budgeting is hilarious nonsense, really. Toxic, evil crap, if I may say so, in American. So I got acquainted with this Beyond Budgeting thing, and 3 years later or so, in 2003, I became a director of the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable. So I joined this movement. I left my corporate career and became a research director of the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable at the time. I stayed with the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable for 5 years, and then we had a split, I would say, around this matter. Should we be a think tank at the Beyond Budgeting movement, or should we promote actual transformation? I think it's a very similar question that you guys are dealing with, right? if we understand the problem, you call it fiat. I know at the time we called it command and control pyramid organizations and so on. If we understand the problem, and I think you guys understand the problem reasonably well. I read the book. Yeah, of course, in books like mine, I also describe the problem.
Oh, come on! I held up your book. You hold up your book. You're supposed to hold up.
I do not have your book here, but believe me, it's there in print at my house, at my home. Yeah, I read it, and I read it with passion because I thought, they really got to the same conclusion: decentralization. This is where I got, where the Beyond Budgeting movement arrived 20 years ago. Right? We arrived at this conclusion that organizations.
Niels, can I pause you for a second? I'm sorry. I just. Will, I think we're getting some background noise. Could you mute when you're not?
Yes.
Let's try that. See if that helps. Because
yes, there's Spanish-speaking people in the back.
Yeah.
And I love that, but yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to hear you sometimes when background noise is there. So I apologize for that. But
yeah, decentralization. I got acquainted with that, and maybe from a different angle as you, Jose and Guillermo. But if you look at the history of management and how Taylorism came about, how it became popularized, how command and control or pyramid organizing with functional division and lots of bureaucracy, lots of planning, lots of steering came about, you cannot help noticing that at a certain point, maybe in the 1970s, that moment came to an end. I like to say that command and control management, you call it fiat, I know, it kind of should have gone to the garbage heap of history. You know, we should have promoted it to the garbage heap of history. But no, organizations are still stuck there. So I did this research for 20 years. I wrote several books. Here's another book, and here's another book. And I wrote a book about W. Edwards Deming as well, with quotes. So I've been writing 12 books by now, and I did a lot of consulting work around this. So helping organizations to change, which is probably something we will talk about. What can we do to change, to promote improvement in organizations? Because command and control, or the fiat model of organizing, is doomed. It's dead. It's a dead parrot, as they would say in Monty Python.
Unfortunately, it still talks.
Everybody has this insight in a way that there's something wrong about it, but few organizations like Toyota, Handelsbanken, W. L. Gore, the usual suspects, as I sometimes call them, only they have overcome this. So I have been researching this. We developed methods called self-structure design, open space beta, relative targets to make this doable. And yeah, this consulting, speaking, writing about this, developing tools, also tools for learning in organizations to make.
I want to go back a little bit. I want to rewind back to the bad things, because I think the bad things really give us a sense of what people are dealing with, right?
Yeah.
They're dealing with day-to-day issues, concerns, and so did we, right? You experienced stuff because you were in the corporate world working in these organizations. Yes. I have as well. And both us and others will as well, and others have had this really sense of the ability to taste the problem.
Yes.
Not just have an ideal view of the problem. Taylorism is the problem. Here's the thing. So give us some examples of in your experience, in your world. Give us some examples of what that meant to you in the real world. Some of the bad things that you did, that happened to you, that you were doing, that are more about the reality, not just the theory.
Well, I, as a corporate controller, I was, of course, involved in doing budgeting and planning and prescribing targets and being part of target negotiations, and then promoting plan actuals variance analysis. So this kind of you compare the actual numbers with the planned numbers, which is the worst, as I now know, it's the worst way of judging actual performance.
Say that again. The actual numbers versus planned numbers.
Planned actual variance reporting is the worst possible fathomable way of judging performance. Judging performance, actual real performance against a plan, is hilarious. It's not even unprofessional, it's hideous, really. It's the worst. But if you look at organizations, large or small, the larger the worse, I would say. Everybody has this kind of reporting against plan. Everybody does annual planning. Everybody does budgeting. Everybody has fixed targets. Now the latest framing of fixed targets is called OKRs. It's just the same hilarious stuff as management by objectives was 20, 30 years ago. So it's command and control has a vicious ability, an interesting ability of reinventing itself. Now, if I may be a little bit emotional, it's like fascism. Fascism, as a German, I know what fascism is, from our history. It reinvents itself as popularism, as with authoritarian underpinnings. And of course, in the United States, there has been a president who has drunk from that well, right?
Oh, you went there. You went there. I can't believe you went to him. That's
It's undeniable. I mean, many. I now live in Europe again, and Poland and Hungary, for example,
are going through the same thing.
And of course, we now have a. I will not call it neo-fascist, but almost neo-fascist movement again in Germany, which is not yet dominating. Like in France, we have this. In almost all Western countries, this is rising again. We have now a wave of anti-Semitism happening almost everywhere in the world. So like in the real world of our societies, there is a backswing, I think, recently, away from a commitment to self-organizations and decentralization back to treacherous. You claim that you are about self-organization and democracy and so on, but you're not. You dabble with OKRs, with command and control methodologies again, or fiat tools. And fiat language is everywhere again.
Yes.
I think. So there, practically, I mean, this is embedded in our language when we talk of status quo milestones and breaking down and rolling out and getting in the boat and all that command and control, authoritarian, paternalistic language is everywhere in corporations, in larger organizations, everywhere, even at the Googles. Yeah. And we see the tools. Sometimes, as I like to say, they are hipstered up, re-hipstered, or repackaged. So we have management by objectives coming back as OKRs. We have hilarious stuff, like brainstorming coming back as design thinking and so on. Then all these kind of tools, all the agile scaling frameworks are nothing else than matrix organization. So we have very practically, most organizations are stuck in command and control tools and vocabulary and imagery and ideology, really. So this is very profound, and I'm trying to fight this. This is not just a thing of personal experience. I'm not trying to therapize myself. I'm trying to make a contribution to democracy and to organizational democracy, to organizational well-being. And here's the interesting thing: command and control cannot get you anywhere to decent performance or high performance. It cannot, because command and control is under complex, oversimplifying.
So democracy, in your terms, because democracy means a lot of things to a lot of people, right?
Yes.
The co-op movement is 150 years old, going on a couple hundred years. And the idea has been democratic governance, democratic ownership. So it's not that we don't have traditional ways of doing it. So what's different in your book, in your view, in your many books, in your view, what's different about the democracy that you're seeking, that we are seeking today, and the democracy that, say, for example, the co-op movement has been talking about for a long time? Yeah,
I think the co-op movement, it has had enormous historical importance, meaning as a way. For example, cooperative banking was in Germany when it was founded. It was a solution to a big agricultural problem or economic problem that we had, that farmers weren't able to finance their business, smoothen their cash flow and so on, and so they had to create cooperative banks. The cooperative movement is very laudable, don't get me wrong, but here's the thing: collective ownership doesn't get you to decentralization. And there is a disagreement maybe between the book, Radical Companies, or your stuff, Jose. I don't want to overplay this.
No.
This is for me this is for me a matter. When I read your book, I thought, oh, this is interesting because there we disagree a little. Yeah, it's about style. And this for me is not about right or wrong, but I would argue that collective ownership is the consequence of decentralization and not the precondition to it. And I know that the co-op movement and collective ownership is very close to your heart, Jose, and to radical companies as a concept. But I'm very much influenced conceptually by systems theory, by of course economics, as I'm an economist myself. Business theory. Radical humanism, as you might say, psychology. And here's the thing: if we turn collective ownerships into a precondition to creating the right organization, then we will never get there. Yeah, because of course some organizations are not easily transformed into co-ops, and not every business owner. I have businesses myself. I do not necessarily want to turn my own company in any stage into co-op. I might. Yeah, but again, I would argue that collective ownership is the consequence of creating a great organizational model and not a precondition. Yeah.
What does that mean? What's the consequence? So now we've got a small organization, say a 30-person, 40-person organization, and we're going to become decentralized, democratic, and then what? How does that turn into co-ownership?
It can turn into co-ownership. By the way, I've advised companies that went straight to co-ownership because they thought it was important. But some of these companies never got to actual decentralization because they thought that co-ownership would get them automatically. It's just a misunderstanding, I think, that co-ownership will get you to organizational democracy. But organizational democracy, and this is a very interesting concept, so I'm happy that you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Because, you mentioned that democracy means a lot of things to many people, different things. Yes, for example, if I say democracy, some people might think of voting. We have to vote on everything, have majority rule, or total unity. That's not organizational democracy. Organizational democracy is decentralization. Why is that? Because organizations are peaches. Now I have to go a little bit into the concept. Beta Codex, we say organizations are more like peaches. They are not pyramids, they are peaches. They must be decentralized. Why? Because the periphery must be in charge, so that the center serves the periphery and the periphery serves the external client or markets. An organization looks like a peach with a pit and the flesh, and the periphery must be in charge. That's how an organization gets democratic, not through ownership. That can be a consequence. It can be done. For example, I once was married to a Googler, a woman who worked at Google, yes, in Brazil. And the first day she started at Google, she got a package of shares from Google, which I think is great, but it's just symbolic. Yeah, regardless of the amount of shares that you might have of your company, that is not what makes you. It makes you a co-owner. But here's the thing. I should illustrate this maybe, but here's the thing. Organizations, if they are peaches, the owners aren't part of the peach. This is very interesting from something we can learn from systems theory. Owners are not part of the organization. They are part of the market. The owners are outside. If this is the skin of the peach, and there is the flesh, which is the periphery, and the center, yeah, owners are outside. They are not center or periphery. They are in the market. They have shareholding control of the organization, but they are not part of the organization. Only the employees and managers and so on, they are part of the organization with their respective roles. Yeah? So you do not make an organization democratic by giving people ownership. Giving people ownership, it's a good idea, right? I'm for that, but right. It's not a necessity, because in the organization, your owners are not even part of the organization. If you are an owner, you are outside in the market as a shareholder. You can control the boundary of the organization, for example, but to make the organization itself democratic, the power must be devolved or returned to actors in the periphery, not the center. The center must give up the steering. The periphery must be in charge. That is organizational democracy, because it gives people or cells or teams in the periphery the autonomy and the responsibility to run many businesses, many companies. And I think we agree on this.
So, but there's a bit of a conflict there. And Will, please jump in anytime if you want.
Yes, Guillermo. Yes, please.
But I have a question, which is,
yes.
So we've got the pit, and the pit is the old leadership. Is that okay? What is the pit?
Yeah, the pit is great. By the way, great question. This always needs to be clarified. When I talk of center and periphery, everybody thinks, then the old managers and managers are in the center. That's not entirely true. Basically, if you imagine an organization as the periphery being in charge and the center serving the periphery, let's start with imagining the periphery. The periphery consists of business teams of maximum 8 people, maybe 5 people, 6, 7, 8, 9, always gets a little tricky already. So you have a large organization might have hundreds and hundreds of these periphery cells or periphery teams running in the businesses, having clients, making a profit as well. Having income, selling something to external clients and having an income, having costs, or making a profit, making a margin. And then the center serves the periphery. So the center is not management. The center is teams that do stuff that the periphery cannot do for themselves or doesn't want to do for themselves.
So administrative/support teams are the center.
Yes, boring stuff. Let's take accounting as a great example.
Okay. Yeah? So what happens to the CEO of a company?
CEO is a role of the center. You are right about that. Yes, you are totally right. The CEO is always. Why is the CEO role part of the center? You're totally right. Of course, intuitively you got that part totally right.
Maybe I can illustrate something with the example of our company. Because what you're speaking about sounds a lot like SIPE, because we call that team in the center, we call it the support team, and we have different teams that are working directly with the customer to do what company does.
Yes.
We do software development, and they are the teams are working directly with our customer. But in the center, we have a support team. And we put all the necessary positions like CEO, COO, but the titles are only to be understandable for the people from the outside. In the inside behavior, what that team is doing is providing everything that the teams need to work and to perform in front of the customer and solve their problems. So it's a team of facilitators to allow the people to do their job without being worried about anything else, taxes or supply management or whatever needed. Is how we are organized, and what you're saying sounds a little bit like that, or a lot like that.
Yeah.
Am I right?
I always like to disagree a little. Can I disagree a little?
Okay.
It's my style, and it's also a consulting technique. So it's usually more interesting if I disagree a little bit. It sounds like, Guillermo, what you said sounds like this model, which I call it beta, or the beta codex, decentralization. The periphery should be in charge. So we probably agree on all this, right? But Guillermo, you talked of facilitation. And that is where paternalism or authoritarianism sneaks back in. An organization that is truly decentralized will not require coordination from the center, nor facilitation, nor mothering or puppering or anything like that. Yeah. If the periphery is in charge, they are in charge. Imagine, and I give you an example to how to think through this. In a traditional company, you would say the CFO has the money, right? The finance director or the finance people or the CEO, they have the money. Yeah. And of course, in this kind of organization, the CFO might be somewhere in the center and the CEO, they are roles in the center. Now, in a decentralized organization, they do not have the money. And this is very important. Actually, I think this is also, I hope, Jose, that you will find this interesting for the concept of radical companies. The radical thing about decentralization is to give the periphery authority over their own time, their own business and the money. Because here's the thing, in a beta organization, radically decentralized, and I think in radical companies, that's the radical thing. Think of the organization having these business teams in the periphery. They have clients and they charge their clients. They send out invoices and get paid. So the money always comes into the periphery. And here's the thing. The center cannot make any money. It cannot make a profit. Only the periphery can make a profit. So all these periphery cells, they have the money. If the company wants to invest, you have to ask not the CFO, not the CEO, but the periphery. Do we want to invest in this ridiculously, hideously expensive IT system? Only the periphery can give the money for that. That is where decentralization goes.
So that does not.
That's democratic, by the way, right?
Right, and that does not really it's not different than what we've been talking about in not such explicit ways. We're consistent. What I'm saying is what you've just described and what radical describes is not very different.
No, it's not.
But I want to go back. I want to go back a step, though. I do want to go.
I want to disagree.
Well, but let me go back a step, because I really want to get to the ownership part for a second.
Okay.
Though I think this part is very important. So I don't want to waste the rest of our time on ownership, but I want to be clear about something. Who is the board and the ownership, the shareholders, holding responsible for the behavior or the performance of the organization? Who can they fire and hire within the organization? Is it the periphery, the people that are making all the decisions, or is it the center?
Neither nor. The law actually says exactly what the powers of the board are. Usually to institute the CEO, the board of directors also.
Right.
Of course. So that's legally it's unchangeable, and we don't need to change it. The thing is, a decentralized organization does not require different. There's no different laws required to run this kind of organization, no different kind of compliance or something. In fact, this kind of organization, Handelsbanken in Sweden is a great example of this kind of organization. They work within the law just normally, or Toyota operates within the laws. There's no conflict with compliance here, much to the contrary. So the board of directors is in the market. Here's the board of directors in the market, not in the organization. Every owner is in the market outside. Yeah?
Right.
And the owners have the power to nominate the CEO,
And to make major decisions and directional decisions, right?
I think not to make the decision, but because actually legally it's the obligation of the board of directors to.
But the board of directors is made up of investors and
yes,
some management, right?
Yeah, but they only have the right. I mean, the board of the owners, in a way, only have the right to approve or disapprove certain strategic directions, not to develop them. To develop them is responsibility of management. Of course, in many corporations, this is being fuzzied.
Yeah.
Today
Maybe our boards are different in Europe and here in the United States and Canada, but I've sat on a few boards, and definitely the boards felt that they had more power than just to approve or disapprove what
a good CEO
as a shareholder.
I can tener cojones. A good CEO must tell the owners, this is the limit, this is the boundary you shall not cross. And you're totally right, Jose. Currently, we are living in an age where owners meddle too much with management decisions, and where managers give up too much. They are many top managers, I think, give too much space to ownership, voice, and so, which means that responsibility gets fuzzy and unclear. And I think that we see that in corporations, this has a dark side, right? This kind of fuzziness between responsibilities of owners and managers.
Right. And for example, we've had a bad quarter. Our quarter isn't going so well. What are we going to do about it? Management, what are you going to do? well, we think it's going well. No, it's not going well. So we want you to cut 25%. And that happened in many of the organizations over the last year here in Silicon Valley, where the market dictated that there needed to be cost cutting.
The market doesn't dictate that. Oh, that's interesting, right? If we say that, we give up reasonableness in management. You're talking, I mean, if that is the case, Jose, I have to believe what you're saying, right? You are there. Yeah? But if that is the case, then organizations already went to hell. Because if you let owners decide about cost cutting and management or what consultants to hire, usually McKinsey, then management is dead. Then top managers gave up their balls, they gave up everything, their ethics as well. Of course, there should be a clear division between who decides what. Managers should in principle conceptualize and decide these things and seek for board approval, or ownership approval. That's it. Yeah. And not the other way around. Once as a CEO, you accept that the owners dictate what to do. You are not a CEO. You are a lame duck.
Right.
Loser. That's loser. What you describe is Silicon Valley losership, not leadership.
Well, but if the markets if the owners don't have, I mean, there's you've written a number of books. You know this very well.
Yes.
There is an understanding that we're no longer running businesses for the long term. We're running them for the quarterly results.
Yeah, it's called the numbers game, right? But this is unethical, highly unethical. I think we have to fight this idea of numbers games, for example, CFOs projecting income and profits. All that gives, of course, owners the tools and the means to steer organizations. And here's the thing: once owners start to steer the organization, or let's turn it the other way around. If we want to free organizations from command and control management, and I suppose some of the people watching and listening to this, I hope you agree that command and control is horrible, like fascism or Stalinism, authoritarianism. Command and control management and the pyramid way of organizing is horrible for so many reasons, thousands of reasons, which we could discuss, and we could therapize them, forever. Create our self-therapy around it, but let's not go there. If we want to free organizations for command and control, finally, and in my work, I always say this is not a question of taste or experience, it's a need, because markets are complex. So here's the thing: if we want to overcome command and control, we need to decentralize. Why? Because clients are in charge. We need to accept that customers, steer the organization. In fact, they steer the periphery, and then the periphery should steer the center. Now, if you let owners take on the steering and make decisions about, by the way, cost management, cost reduction, cost cutting, it's a hideous way of steering from the center to the periphery. And that is part of command and control problem. We should never cut costs. We should not management costs. Cost management, and let me say this as an ex-finance manager, cost management is a ridiculous misunderstanding. Yeah. You cannot even manage cost. Cost is just the complicated shadow of value creation and waste. You cannot manage cost. You can improve value creation and reduce waste. That's what the leaners have told us for decades.
So I want Guillermo to jump back in a second here, but I just wanted to wrap up the ownership piece, because what you're saying is, in a perfect world where the markets aren't dictating what CEOs should be doing, what boards should be doing, then we don't need to change ownership. But if CEOs grew a bunch of balls, as you said earlier, and really pushed back on the markets, but at the same time listened to the folks on the periphery. So my role is to push back on the ownership, do what my team is doing. So all I'm doing is being a good listener to what my team is doing and protecting my team from the ownership.
Yes.
And
my own stupid ideas and reflexes that want me to jump in. Yes.
Okay. So
it's not a matter of a perfect world. It's a matter of professionalism and integrity among managers and employees. If you are with integrity, the only way to run an organization is in a decentralized fashion.
I could not agree more. I just disagree that that we can still have a relationship with an external ownership class, and that ownership class will not meddle in what's happening. I think that's impossible.
Here's the thing. May I add something to that? A story from Handelsbanken, the Swedish bank. They have run this kind of decentralized model for over 50 years, starting in 1971. They've been Europe's most successful bank for over 5 decades. Yeah. And once their CFO, he told me, when our investors, our main shareholders, when they ask me about the CFO, he said, when our investors ask me about the projections for the next quarter or the year, I, the CFO, can never give them a number, because that would unleash the numbers game. It would unleash corruption in a way, and gaming and meddling. So I have to, as a CFO, I have to tell them, that's what the guy said, really. I have to tell them, make up your own number. I can give you all the information so that you, as an investor or corporate analyst or whatever you are, can make up your own number. But I cannot give you the projection. It's against my job. It's against my ethics as a CFO. If I give you the number, come up with your own number. Yeah. So this is fun. What you describe with such vehemence, Jose, is a corruption of American management that you describe. I reject the notion that what you describe is common. If it is common, it is close to how can I say it? Corruption, criminality, unprofessionalism. It's a loss of ethics between managers, meddling of the role, clarity of division of roles between managers and external actors like.
We've gone long already, and I really want Guillermo to jump in here, but I have to
push back on
one more. I have to push back on one more thing. How many, this bank that you've just described, how many organizations do you think the CFO would say the exact same thing?
How many others?
Yes.
How many others? Yeah, too few. But at least there was a study in America, in the United States, done 10 or 15 years ago, that analyzed how many organizations, how many companies in the New York Stock Exchange, publicly listed companies, provided the markets with forecasted numbers to produce a numbers game. And the result was that only 2/3 of organizations provided these numbers. Another 1/3, and among them large companies like Coca-Cola, they didn't give earnings guidance. Giving earnings guidance is the slide into authoritarianism, organizational evilness, so to speak, into the fiat model of organizing, as you call it, Jose.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. So
let's leave it there. And I want to ask Will, because Will thought that that the way we've described radical, I think, may not sound like what he's experiencing.
No, well, the thing is, the cell structure that you have behind you, yes. It sounds. I see it. It's a very stable model, but I see a confrontation between the stability, how stable it is, and the how intended it is, because organization must. Well, I don't know, not must, but organization mostly have a goal to do. And in the model you are proposing, I see it. Well, I see it clear. It's a cell. The perimeter is managing is capable to manage everything, and well, in a cell that happens. It's an organism that works like that, but every time it's time to grow or to replicate, the result is in a fraction. And is what I see in the model you're speaking of. If without that part of facilitators, which is not paternalism, is just as it was said, to make the other people works easier, so they can focus on what is important and not on all the rest of things that they don't need. Money, of course. The people in the periphery, they are in charge of their budget and their profit. That's completely fine. but they don't want to be dealing with different suppliers or whatever. So they have people in that part. Okay, if in what and that model seems stable. But when the moment of making hard decisions, as Jose brings to the table, what I see is a that cell will start doing a
No,
mitosis.
you do not see that. You fear that. You fear that. You
No,
cannot imagine that in tough times, a cell can make the right decisions better than a manager. Now look at the
no. It's not like that. The managers will be always wrong because they only have a couple of eyes, and they are seeing in a single direction. That's
Exactly.
I'm totally agree. The thing is when the moment of grow or take different paths or different decisions, because all the teams are self-managed.
Yes.
The only way that a cell, following the example of the cell, start a process that divide the cell, and then you have two small organizations
Yes.
doing whatever. So okay.
Yes. A cell cannot grow beyond, let's say, 9 or 10 people. Then it must
Exactly.
split up into two cells. Cell division, like in a body.
Yes, exactly. So now again we have two stable models of cells, but again they will split again and again and again. And how can we keep the integrity in the legal framework that we live of everything on that? Are those
Yes.
new companies every time and with maybe some ideas, some roots that keep them united? But that's what I see. I don't see the in your model the possibility uh, to keep all together without, I don't know. Well, I don't see reason to keep that people together in a single organization in that model.
I think now I got it. Your doubt is if such an organization can remain cohesive and together, so to speak, or if it will fall apart. Is that the
Just
question?
yes, there is no reason
Yes, there is reason.
with that level of independence to be called a company. So
No.
it's why.
That's by the way, that, Guillermo, is a classic reaction to whenever we talk about this distinction between what you guys call the fiat model and the radical company model, or we call it alpha and beta. The alpha codex, it's a philosophy behind this model. There is a philosophy, functional division, steering from the top, planning, control, centralized control, command control, and so on.
Yes.
And here the model is about decentralization, periphery being in charge, the center serving the periphery, and so on. So both have philosophies, and they are opposed. They cannot be mixed, these philosophies. Okay.
Agree.
If once you get into distinguishing these two models, one of the doubts that quickly come up is this organization must end in anarchy or fall apart.
I don't think that that's the case.
It's not my
into this direction.
but
No?
it's not my feeling. I understand. Okay, so three people collaborating and co-working and co-creating, they are at some point they will jump out of the organization and do anything else, and that's fine.
People leave
It's
and people join. Yes.
yeah, and I often use the analogy to a train. Companies are trains. People can
Yes.
jump in, jump out, and
Yes.
that's it to get into
Yes.
into other point in life. That's fine. But if everybody in the periphery
Yes.
are doing everything in the organization, there's no reason to be called an organization. You have a group of organizations, and that's fine. But it's not an organization.
No. The thing is, you went from dependence to independence. Your logic went too far into the sense of
I would say
but
interdependence.
exactly. This model is interdependent. Could a cell leave the organization and become a separate business? No, there's no way.
Why
Take
not?
the example of the bank that I mentioned, or take the example of W.L. Gore or Burzorg or Morningstar. There are several examples of beta organizations, of course. And the teams cannot just leave because they need the business model, the infrastructure that the center provides, for example, the support of other cells. So And there's no reason. If you're at Handelsbanken, one of the top executives of Handelsbanken, when we invited him to a conference, he said, at Handelsbanken, I hoped when I joined 30 years ago, he said, 30 years ago I joined Handelsbanken, or 27 years ago, I joined Handelsbanken. I expected to have a lot of autonomy, but I got way more than that. It's like running a branch, it's like running your own bank. It's just that you do not have to put your own money. So a great organization like this, it makes people feel like entrepreneurs, but they are still interdependent.
Not being.
Be is irrelevant. Again, that can be a consequence. At Handelsbanken, for example, everybody gets shares as well. Again, we get back to this thing that shared ownership is not a precondition of this model, but it's a logical consequence. If you want to put people in charge, why not share the ownership with them to a certain degree? Yeah, why not? It's a logical consequence of this model. So I agree totally about shared ownership, but not as a precondition to transformation. Here's the thing.
Oh, okay. I figured it out, Niels.
Yeah.
So we agree on the exact same thing.
Yes.
What the focus for me in our conversation here is not in transformation. It's not in going from a fiat organization into a beta organization or a radical organization.
It is not what you're interested in?
No.
Why not? How can you not be interested in that?
Because, well, it's not what the conversation that I'm having. It's not to say that it's not an interest, but the conversation for me is that when we are talking about the establishment of something, not the transformation of something to something else, which is the business, which is an effort, which is what our communities are working on. But if we look at the two things independently, meaning there's this thing that exists and there's this thing that we want to exist. Okay. The thing that we want to exist, in my view, would be better in the sense not of easier because we're doing transition or harder because we're doing transition, but would be better if ownership was part of the package. And again, from the standpoint of independently, if this thing existed independently, would it be better? That's the question. And I know we're at 47 minutes on a 30-minute show, but I'm loving this conversation. Hopefully everybody else is too. Niels, how are you doing for time?
Oh yeah, I'm cool.
Will?
Me too, I'm cool.
Okay. We'll probably cut it off in say about 10 minutes. How's that sound for everybody?
Good.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's just otherwise it's too long and nobody will want to listen to us.
I'm not quite sure if I got your point totally, Jose. So I have to do a little bit of guessing. Yeah. Or in addition to what you said, I would try to add something. Look, today's organizations, let's say 99% of organizations are in command and control. They are suffering.
Exactly.
It might be 96% or 19. Let's take 96% because W. Edwards Deming always told of the 96%. So let's assume that 96% of organizations, large and small, are in command and control mode. Who's suffering? Everybody. Alpha or command and control or fiat organizations produce no winners. Shareholders lose because these organizations cannot be as effective and profitable. Managers lose because they are unhappy losers at the top, unhappy oxy swallowing losers, suffering from heart attacks and feeling as heroes, but they know that they are losers and not heroes. I'm dramatizing. I think one of the common mistakes in judging the state of management today is that we confuse this model with some people winning and nobody wins. Employees suffer, managers suffer, owners suffer, the society suffers because these organizations can never be sustainable. They can never produce the optimum result for societies or shareholders or the environment. It's like a highly ineffective motor in your car, a really bad motor. You put a really bad motor in and burn a lot of gas without getting traction for it. That's what management, the social technology, or Taylorism, or the fiat model is today.
Yeah.
It sucks. Yeah, it sucks for everyone. Everybody gets hurt.
Yes.
Only the management consultants win.
No, they're pissed off too.
And they are pissed off too. They are losers too. I mean, everybody feels that we are losing. So here's my I'm not idealistic at all. I'm a realist. I see the mess. This is something we got from Russell Eckhoff. This is the mess that organizations are in. Command control, bullshit management. Now, there's an alternative. It exists in some organizations, maybe only 4% of organizations, right? Now, here's the thing. I'd say we want to get all the 96% of organizations here. We know how to do it. And this is probably when you, Jose, and you, Guillermo, and most listeners say, Niels is just a bullshitter. He is just a fraud. He claims that every organization, including the very large ones, can just be transformed like that. And I'm not a bullshitter. And I might add, it takes just 90 days, regardless of an organization's size, to transform any organization from alpha, command and control, to beta.
Okay.
Without having a genius, without using armies of consultants. We know how it works. We know the approaches. We know how it works. We know that there's a methodology. And in principle, anyone can do it. Is it simple? No, but it can be done. So my point here is, Jose, I think we should aim at transformation. And once we transform an organization, then there's nothing simpler than adding co-ownership. But you cannot combine transformation with forcing the owners to give up ownership. That will work in only it will make the challenge of transformation even bigger than it is. And it is big because if you have an organization with 10,000 people, everybody here thinks in command and control mode, everybody. It's like infiltration, like a sect, a cult of command and control. So
yes,
in the 90 days, people need to reframe, some people call it unlearn, but retrain their reflexes to work in this model. But in parallel, you cannot communitize the organization ownership-wise at the same time. You can do this. You can do it, but we shouldn't make it an obligation. That's my point with the ownership.
Right. No, I understand exactly what you're saying. And so now here's the question that I have.
Yeah.
I love the simplicity with which you describe that. I love the fact that you're thinking about how do we transition this 96% into something that we already have some examples of.
Yes.
I'm game for that.
Yes.
For that conversation. The question that I have is, is it the fastest way to actually do the transition that we all know needs to be done? Because if we don't do a transition, a global transition, not a transition of companies necessarily, but a global transition away from the way we do work, the way we do governance, the way we are command and control as a society, how do we ask that question of, can we start new companies, new organizations from the ground up faster than we can transition the whole market system, the whole legal system, and everything else to support the level of mindset change that you're talking about?
Okay, that's great. I have two responses to that. The first is, I have to ask you, where are you located, Jose?
I'm in Silicon Valley.
Oh, that's California, United States of America, right?
In the heart of Silicon Valley, Menlo Park, yeah.
Last time I checked, America was still a democracy. It's under siege.
How long was that? How long?
No, the most important point is it is a democracy. It is not a command and control society. So I have to reject the assumption that...
Hold on. What's the difference between a president and a CEO?
Everything. Oh, organizations and societies are different. This is systems theory. I can only recommend you to study systems theory as well.
Please, go ahead.
It makes everything clearer. An organization is totally different than a society, because an organization, it means that you join and you can leave. Look, in any kind of organization, command and control or sense and respond or beta, centralized or decentralized, people join and they can leave. You can opt in and opt out. Now, society, not so.
The 60% of Americans that don't vote for federal elections, you don't consider that opting out?
No, that just shows that America hasn't learned to give everybody. I mean, it says we the people, right? But we the people includes 100% of people who live there and who have voting rights. I mean, the American election system is totally broken. I read something about it just last week, and I was shaking my head. But here's the thing: democracy is never perfect. Democracy is always in work in progress. A beta organization, we call this model beta, because every beta organization, it comes from software development, beta version. Organizations are work in progress. They are alive. They always have to fight authoritarianism and command and control. Even the best organizations in the world, Toyota, Southwest Airlines, Handelsbanken, DM Drogeriemarkt from Germany, and so on. The best beta organization, they continuously have to fight. And this is my second point. In a democracy, all organizations should be democratic. This is democratic. This is Stalinism. Yeah? To make this very clear, command and control or fiat organizations are Stalinist organizations. Not great for a democracy. It's subpar. It's a shame. We should be ashamed of how organizations are run with budgets, like Soviet-style budgets,
So I'm going to say, Niels, because I live in the United States and I know that things are different in other countries. But
great country.
We have a single senator that is keeping all of the military from getting promotions, from getting raises. A single individual.
That shows the power of democracy. As bad as that is, it shows that a single individual can fuck up everything, stall a political process, influence. It's even the worst things in a democracy, like lobbyism in the United States and in Germany, is terrible right now. Even worse in America. Even that, as bad as it is a proof of American democracy. That you don't, as a citizen, you can do more than voting. As a company, you can influence. Yeah, of course.
What you're describing as a democracy, I see it in your diagram, and with the example of the United States, what I see is a technocracy. It's a system that rules the people, and the people create rules, but it's almost impossible to derogate rules back. So we are stacking one rule over one rule, and it seems like this democracy because originally it was, but that is what I see in the cell model. Any cell model is a technocratic model. Not the decisions don't came from the root or the inside of the people. It came from the people, but according to a lot of stuff that we can't challenge. And that's the problem with the model you're saying, with the democracies in all the Western world.
I think we cannot solve the problems of the Western world and the lack of citizenry in the United States. And because look back at Martin Luther King, and you see that democracy works very well in the United States. The United States are capable of improving always. Every democracy has that need for citizenry, for active citizenship. And of course, in Germany and in the United States, we have allowed for some slack to happen. I think we agree on that.
Yeah,
right? I'm not saying that America is optimal. Yeah.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
But the similarities is, I think, stronger than you make it sound.
But my point, the point that I wanted to drive home, is that in a democracy that is functioning good or bad, organizations should be beta, not alpha. But the overwhelming majority of organizations is alpha. Organizations or management sucks.
Yes.
We need to change organizations to promote democracy. I would turn this even around. How can American democracy improve if organizations are 90%, 96% of our...
Totally. Could not agree more with that.
It can't.
Yeah.
It cannot.
We have to improve organizations to promote democracy, I think. Yeah. But my other point was, Jose, you made the argument that if we are able to create new beta organizations at a higher rate than whatever decay is happening and so on, then we would substitute the world organizations by beta organizations, and this will die out. This will not work. Sadly, there's a mistake in that, in this logic. I love the logic. Oh, if we create new beta organizations, then we will save the world in the long run. It will take 50 years, 60 years, but it will work. Sadly, not. And here's the basic problem. I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm just trying to,
Fair enough. Let's go.
Here's the thing. All organizations, believe it or not, are founded in beta mode. Organizations are born in what we call naive beta. This is not something I came up with. This is already in the book, Organized for Complexity. So you can read it there. This is a 10-year-old book and it's already all there. So organizations are born in naive beta and they sustain beta for a while, but then when they grow up to 30 people, 50 people, 100 people, they fall into the trap of command and control. They transform. This is very important for our understanding of the way to save the world, to promote better organizations. It's very important to understand that nobody wants alpha. Alpha is just
a default way of doing it because we don't know better.
Yeah, it's laziness, stupidity, a lack of attention to organization's model. Like when you have a startup, you are fascinated and marveled by your own business, your own product. It's so beautiful. And then you grow and grow, and then you start doing alpha things, like you create an HR department. You put in a sales director, or you create a sales. When you create a sales department, you're already half here. You're already almost dead, undead, zombies. I could sometimes call this the zombie model of organizing. So once you apply functional division, now we have 30 people, let's create functions, you're already dead. Once you create director levels, for steering, once you create your first budget, once you write a strategy, you are falling into the trap of command and control. It's like sidewind instability. When you're driving a car or a bicycle and you get sidewind, that's what's happened to perfectly decent startups and small organizations. When they grow, they fall into the trap of command and control. They get transformed into the wrong direction. Right. So helping organizations to be created as beta organizations is not the solution, sadly, because the trap happens to most organizations. Some exceptions. W.R. Gore, Southwest Airlines, even Google sustained beta for a long time. Then in 2011, I think it went command and control. So some organizations...
Yeah.
When they create Alphabet.
So this is important. This is systems theory thinking, by the way, right?
So I think we need to wrap it up there. I'd love to keep talking.
It's too good. Love
to keep talking.
This
has been a really good conversation. Thank you, Niels, for being as upfront and open and being willing to have these good conversations. I think we need to have more conversations about these different views and really have people see that there is a general agreement that this is what we have to do. That's the first.
We are struggling with the consequences of these insights, right? We're not struggling with. I think nobody who is slightly serious about business will deny that command and control sucks, right? The question is, what are the consequences? Can we believe that transformation is possible? Can we believe that this model exists even? Yeah, those are the questions. Can we fathom a way of transforming, by the way, that exists? You just have to buy the book. So can we believe these things? Can we fathom organizational democracy? Do we dare to think that the periphery can be put in charge without anarchy rising? Those are I have struggled with this for 20 years, we are in the same community.
Absolutely. One big community, and I think we need to see each other in that way rather than as competitors. Yes. Will, did you want to say something before we close?
No, I'm fine. Thank you for all the conversation, and for sure I will read your book, and I will find you to keep fighting, and hopefully in the future maybe we can meet each other and speak more about it. I have some of what I heard, some concerns that I can't buy, and the thing is that the organization that you're speaking requires a lot of rules, and rules are different.
Yes, yeah. Rules need to be overcome, eliminated. We call that organizational hygiene. Yes, you're totally right. Yes.
Yeah. So let's have this conversation later. And
yes, well,
thank you.
Let's do this. Let's bring Niels back another time. Number one. Number two, we talked about Niels inviting one of us to have a conversation on his podcast, and hopefully
Beta Codex Live. Yes.
Beta Codex Live. So hopefully we'll organize that soon. And Mr. Sanchez is making a comment. I'm going to just talk about that. Maybe this will be the topic of our next conversation. What's the biggest blocker that's preventing organizations to transform into beta. And so
Yes,
we won't answer that today, but let's remember that for our next conversation.
beautiful.
Niels, again, a real pleasure. It's wonderful finally meeting you. I know we've been poking each other for years in the internet out there, but it's been a real pleasure. And thank you for taking the time, spending the whole hour and 5 minutes with us. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, let's do this again. See you around.
See you.